Welcome to Deep Thought. What if the Matrix is real? You know, that's, where did I get that idea from? I think it was like from one of those dumb shows that my son watches. He be watching these dumb adult type shows, but you know how some of those cartoon shows are. You know, they're really for adults anyway. But sometimes they hit you with some deep philosophical stuff. Now, we all know about the Matrix from that classic movie of 20 years ago, you know, where humanity is enslaved by machines and life. They think they live in life, but they really just pods giving energy to machines, and they're in a dream world. Now, of course, philosophically, many have said, yeah, this is a matrix. You know, I think the Indians might call it the Maya, an illusion. And, you know, people use the matrix terminology you know, in parts of YouTube, and which is, you know, came the terms red pill and blue pill. But what if the Matrix is real in the sense that we're all of us are plugged into some mainframe and we're part of a computer generated illusion? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if that's always been the case? What if the movie was an attempt by someone to tell us what the real deal is? You know, what if it's some way? What if there's a version of Zion outside of this thing, and that's what their whole thing is? They trying to say, hey, you're in this mainframe. It's a computer thing, and it's so sophisticated. You know, we can touch something and we can feel it. You know, very sophisticated. Like the real world is like the real world, Zion. You know, that's where everything is messed up because we lost the war with machines. What if it's all real? What if the year isn't 2019, but rather 2319? Like we've been in this for several thousand years. Is it impossible? I mean, you know, you wonder, well, how are all these babies being born? Well, they're working on technology to try to create babies in artificial wombs anyway. All you need is a sperm and an egg. So, you know, and then, you know, as part of the illusion, we felt, you know, someone feels like this baby's coming out of them and they really just in the next pod over, just growing and just feeding something, you know? So would y'all rebel against it? Now, it's easy for people to say, yeah, I would rebel. I would try to be free. I don't know. They didn't look like they were eating well in the real world. They were underground, everything. You know, if you watch the movies, the trilogy, shoot, they wearing jacked up clothes, recycling pee. It's like, man, I don't know. Because if you remember, a classic scene in the first Matrix movie was the character Cypher. He was like, you know what? He was in there. He was about to betray him. He said, you know what? I know my brain is telling me that this, you know, I'll eat this. It's really just impulses going to my brain telling me that this tastes a certain way. But he was like, man, he's ready to get back into it. He wanted to be plugged in. He was tired of eating that slop in the real world. He was just like, boom. It was like, man. And that's a deep thing to think about, though. It's like, man, you know. And of course, there's a real Matrix, because there's a lot of stuff that happens that, you know, if you notice, and it's created by different stuff. Even, okay, let's for a second go away from that whole machine thing. Let's go away for a second now. I mean, you could argue that many things are illusion. And I've actually seen cases where, you know, you might witness something, but then later on the news start putting out a different narrative, or you start getting a different narrative right away. And you're just like, wait a minute, what just happened? And I can't remember specifically. This has happened a few times that I've observed, to the point I'm just like, if you around something significant happening, record that joint. Record that joint. Because even now, if you look at history, there's a lot of stuff that we think happened and we operate off of thinking it happened. But, because history says something different, we think something totally different. We don't realize there was stuff there, because of who's writing the history, the narratives that we're getting. So that's really a matrix in itself. And that's almost that is another show. But think about it, what if we are really tied into some machines? But then we're waiting for the one. I'm gonna tell you what's deep about that. If you remember the Matrix trilogy, Neo came around. He was the Christ-like figure, the Messiah. And Neo, if you arrange the letters, Neo is one. What if he's the one? But, and that was in the first movie. He was the one. He started out the second movie. He was freeing people. He had freed more people. They had to upgrade to fight him and everything. But then around a classic scene at the end of the second Matrix movie was he met the architect. He met the computer program that actually created the Matrix. And what did he say? He said, "You're the sixth one." Because we figured when we first built the Matrix, people rebelled against it. So we destroyed it. And then we destroyed it again and again and again. So you're the sixth one. Because they found that some people didn't accept the program. So you had to have a program, a paradigm to deal with the rebels. In fact, that was a deep concept right there. And I know we go on tangents on this channel. That was a deep concept. There was a mini-series that came out back in 1987. It was called America with a K. And the premise of the series was that the Soviet Union would manage to take over America. And of course, it was very much science fiction since in 1989, the Soviet Union started its descent to dissolution and, really died in 91. I think it was around then. It's amazing. Now, that's another history thing, too. It's amazing nobody seems to talk about the Soviet Union anymore. But, and Russia's back. But, there was some in that series where they had a bunch of kids rebelling and they were like, yeah, down with this system. But it was a KGB agent right there pushing them along. And what the KGB agent said was deep. He said, we give them this outlet so they don't really come against us. We give them an outlet. We know they're going to rebel and everything. So we give them an outlet to rebel. And I was like, wow. So what if in this Matrix, even the movie, that's a deep thing. What if the movie was a way to make people think they're rebelling? It was like, okay, we know y'all going to figure this out. We're going to put a movie in there. First of all, we're going to put attention away from you in a machine thing by putting it in a movie. Which is actually something certain groups do now. They'll make fun of it. They'll say, oh yeah, there really is an Illuminati. Or they'll make it part of TV shows or something. Or, we'll tell you that we got aliens at Area 54. Because then that way, we ain't lying to you. But we making it seem, we taking away the conspiracy part of it. Because if you put, sometimes you can diffuse something by saying, making it part of pop culture. Then the first thing people say, oh, nah, they just made that up. So, they probably said, the machines that we plugged into probably said, hey, let's tell them exactly what's happening. And then that way we diffuse anybody finding out something because they say, oh, that's just a TV show. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to tell you where that happened too. Because when this is a tangent, but y'all know we go on tangents here. Avatar: The Last Airbender. And y'all's like, what this got to do with anything? That's a point where they actually drop some serious science on people, but they put it in a cartoon. Because it really is, you really do have four nations and based on elements. And I might have done something on that. I got to check. Let me know if I've done something on that already. But there are many indigenous cultures around the world classify people according to elements in that race. But when that show, and it's funny, I was on another message board and I talked about that show. I talked about the four elements and how each race is assigned an element. They say, oh, no, that's just Avatar: The Last Airbender. I say, no, they just put the information out. See, that's one thing. That's why I say if we really plugged into machines, the best way to keep us from really rebelling and rejecting the program is to tell us about it. Then people say, oh, that's just fantasy. But there's plenty of things in history that is put out into the public eye just to get them ready for it. Like, for example, I mentioned Area 51. I've actually read stuff from intelligence officers who've written books, and from some who might not have written books. I'll leave it at that. Best way to get the population ready for anything is you put it out first in like fiction. A great example of that, and I'll end it with that, but a great example of that was President Obama. Now, he first came to the public's consciousness with that great speech at the 2004 Democratic Convention. 4 years later, he's elected. Now, a key thing that got him elected was in 2001, the TV show 24. What happened in 24? You had a black president, and he was a popular character. So people were already putting that information out. People were already putting that idea out. They actually tried the same thing with a later version of 24, later season of 24 with a woman president, but I think that didn't work as well because they ran into a writer strike, so the image didn't stick. But that's one of the things. Like, pay attention to any media. And a lot of times, a lot of secret stuff from secret societies, secret knowledge is put out in the form of fiction just to get people used to the idea. Just to get people used to it. And this is how they do intelligence. And like an intelligence agency, if the country is getting ready to invade a country or do something, they'll start putting out propaganda, like movies that talk about that country in a negative way. It's propaganda 101. So anyway, that's all I have for now. I'll get back with you later. Peace and many blessings.